I'm 34 now, and if you had told me even a year ago that I'd be going no contact with my only sister, I wouldn't have believed you. We've always been close. Not best friend close, but share clothes, finish each other's sentences, and complain about our mom, kind of close. At least, I thought we were. The truth started unraveling 2 months ago, and I still haven't wrapped my head around how deep the betrayal goes. My ex, Daniel, and I dated for almost 4 years in our 20s. We met through mutual friends, moved in together after a year, and even talked about getting married. But then, somewhere around the 3-year mark, things started to shift. He got distant, secretive, blamed work stress, money, family stuff, all the usual excuses. I thought maybe we were just going through a rough patch, but one night he told me he wasn't happy anymore and moved out 3 days later. No cheating, no big fight. Just done. It crushed me. I cried myself to sleep for weeks, but eventually, I moved on. I never suspected anything shady. I didn't even hate him. We just didn't work. Or so I thought. Now here's where it gets sick. My younger sister Megan, she's 31, was around during that time. She was finishing college, staying at my place now and then, crashing on the couch when her roommates were driving her nuts. We weren't super strict about boundaries, and Daniel always treated her like a little sister. Nothing weird. Or again, so I thought. Fast forward 6 years. Megan's married now, has a 6-year-old daughter named Zoe. I'm her cool aunt, the one who brings glittery slime and buys too many presents at Christmas. I've never missed a birthday, never said no to babysitting. Zoe and I are tight. So tight, in fact, that 2 months ago, when I was picking her up from kindergarten and she was showing me her art project, she called me Mom by accident. I laughed and corrected her, like anyone would, but she got really quiet. Then she said, in the most matter-of-fact voice I've ever heard, "But Mommy says you are my other mommy." Just not really. My heart stopped. I asked her what she meant, and she looked confused, like she'd said something wrong. She told me she wasn't supposed to say anything else, that Mommy said it's a secret, and I'd get mad. And that's when it hit me, like a train. Zoe was born a little over a year after Daniel and I broke up. She has his exact eyes. Same color, same shape, same intense stare. I used to love those eyes. I used to stare into them every night. I'd just never noticed before. That night, I didn't sleep. I dug through old pictures, compared timelines, did some math, and what I realized made my stomach turn. Daniel dumped me in late August. Zoe was born the following October, which meant Megan would have gotten pregnant in January, 8 months before he broke up with me. I wanted to be wrong. I hoped I was being paranoid. But once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And that's when I started digging. After Zoe let that little truth slip, I spiraled. For a week straight, I barely ate. I barely worked. My mind was spinning with timelines, memories, faces, little things that didn't make sense until now. Suddenly, every odd moment from 6 years ago came flooding back with new meaning. Like the time Daniel went on a work trip and came back oddly cheerful after weeks of being distant, or the weird tension between Megan and him at my birthday party right before we broke up. Or how Megan got super defensive the one time I joked that Zoe looked just like my ex. Back then, I brushed it off, thought it was my grief clouding everything. But now, it felt like puzzle pieces snapping into place. Still, I needed proof. I couldn't confront either of them without something concrete. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I swabbed Zoe's cheek. She was over at my place for a sleepover. Megan was out of town with her husband for the weekend, and I'd ordered a home paternity test kit just in case. I didn't plan on doing anything drastic. I just needed clarity. Zoe didn't even notice. It was a little cheek swab after brushing teeth, and I told her it was a fun science project. I mailed it in, using my own DNA as the match to test for aunt-niece relation, and selected Daniel as the potential father based on a DNA sample I still had. Yeah, I know how that sounds. But hear me out. 6 years ago, I kept a keepsake box after the breakup. A letter he wrote me, a small Polaroid of us, and a few other things, including a used razor from our last vacation together. Don't ask me why I kept it. I guess I wasn't ready to let go. But now, that gross little souvenir became my smoking gun. It took 10 days. 10 days of nausea. 10 days of staring at the mailbox like it might explode. 10 days of wondering if I was going crazy. And then the results came. Zoe isn't my niece. She's my biological daughter's half-sister. Meaning, Daniel is her father. Meaning, my sister had a baby with my ex while he was still with me. Meaning, They lied to me for 6 entire years. I sat on my couch for hours, just frozen. I kept reading the results over and over. There was no doubt. There was no mistake. And that's when the numbness turned into rage. The day I got the results, I didn't call Megan right away. I couldn't. I needed time to process the weight of it. I cried. I screamed into a pillow like a teenager. I punched the steering wheel of my car until my knuckles swelled. It felt like I'd been cheated on all over again. But this time, by two of the people I trusted most. I waited 3 days. Then I asked her to meet for coffee. We sat at a quiet cafe, one we'd gone to dozens of times over the years. She was late, smiling, casual, like she wasn't carrying the biggest betrayal I'd ever experienced. She asked if I was okay, said I looked pale. I just stared at her. And then I asked, "Who's Zoe's father?" Her whole face changed. Her smile twitched. Eyes darted. Just for a second. She paused too long. Way too long. Then she said her husband's name. I asked again. Slowly. Quietly. "Are you sure?" That's when she got defensive. Said I was acting weird. Said she didn't like my tone. Asked me why I was starting drama. And I swear to you, she had the audacity to say I sounded jealous. Jealous? I almost laughed. Almost. That's when I pulled the envelope from my bag. I slid it across the table and told her to open it. She refused. I told her I already knew. Told her I'd done the DNA test. I saw her face crack right there. Her hand started to shake, and for a second, just a second, she looked like she might cry. And then she doubled down. She said the test must be wrong, accused me of manipulating the samples, said I probably contaminated them to stir the pot. I was stunned. Even in the face of hard science, in the face of truth, she still couldn't admit it. So I got up, took the envelope, and right before I left, I said, "Zoe deserves better than a mother who lies about where she came from. I know the truth, and now you do too." Then I walked out. She didn't follow me. She hasn't contacted me since. But what happened after that was even worse than I expected. After I confronted Megan and left her sitting at that cafe with the DNA results in her hands, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd call. Maybe she'd finally admit the truth, apologize, cry, beg for forgiveness, something. But instead, she went straight to damage control. Within 24 hours, my mom called me, furious. Said Megan had told her I was losing it, that I'd stolen DNA from her child, and was spreading lies about Zoe's paternity. I could barely get a word in. My mom was already spun up, emotional, confused, convinced that I was the one creating chaos. Megan had gotten to her first, and the way she twisted it, I couldn't even believe it. She told the whole family that I'd always been weirdly obsessed with Daniel, and that I was jealous of her happiness. She made it sound like I was mentally unstable, like I couldn't let go of my ex, and had turned into some conspiracy-obsessed lunatic. She even said I had a crush on Zoe's dad. My uncle called me later that night, completely blindsided, asking if I was okay. Said Megan made it sound like I needed help. That's when I knew. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was dealing with full-blown reputation sabotage. And the worst part? It worked. At least at first. Most of my family pulled away. Not in a cruel way, but in that we're not sure what's going on, so we're going to stay out of it kind of way. Silence, distance, awkward texts that said nothing. No one wanted to take sides. I wanted to scream. I had proof. Cold, hard evidence. But I couldn't exactly forward Zoe's DNA test around like a group project. She's an innocent kid, and I wasn't about to drag her into the middle of this circus any more than I already had. So I waited, let it simmer. And then, a week later, the twist came. But not from Megan. From Daniel. A week after the cafe confrontation, I was at home, still trying to pick up the pieces, when I got a message I never expected. Not from Megan. Not from my mom. From Daniel's sister. We haven't talked in years, not since the breakup. But we always got along, and she was one of the few people who actually liked me during the relationship. Her message was short, just, "Hey, is everything okay with you and Megan? My brother's acting weird, and I think you should know something." That was all it took. I told her I wasn't sure how much she already knew, so I gave her the short version, that I'd found out Zoe was Daniel's child, and that Megan had lied about it for 6 years. The response came fast. "Oh my God, so it's true?" That's when I knew. He had told someone, just not me. She said he'd been off for weeks, pacing a lot, snapping at people, skipping work. Eventually, after a few drinks at their parents' house, He broke down and admitted he has a daughter with my sister. That it wasn't supposed to happen like this. That it just happened. That he's always felt guilty. According to his sister, Daniel claimed it was a one-night thing. That Megan came on to him during one of the nights she stayed at our apartment. That he was drunk. That he immediately regretted it. But if that's true, why didn't he tell me? Why didn't either of them say anything for 6 years? Why did he let me sit at family dinners and birthdays with a child that should have, been mine? His sister told me he felt trapped. That Megan told him she was pregnant after we broke up and made him promise never to tell anyone, especially me. Said she had it handled. That her now husband would step up and raise Zoe, and no one needed to know the truth. So Daniel stayed quiet. Out of guilt, out of shame, out of cowardice. I asked her if he wanted to talk to me. She said he wasn't ready. That he was afraid of what I'd say. That he thought I might ruin his life. I told her, he already ruined mine. And honestly, that's when I broke. After Daniel's sister confirmed what I already knew, everything started unraveling faster than I expected. I stayed quiet for a few more days, just watching it all play out. Megan still hadn't said a word to me since the cafe. My mom kept sending these stiff, performative, hope you're well texts, like she didn't want to admit she might have picked the wrong side. The family group chat was awkward silence. It was like everyone could feel the tension, but no one wanted to be the one to say, okay, something's clearly up. Then came the part that I wasn't ready for. Zoe called me. I didn't recognize the number at first. It was Megan's landline. I answered, and all I heard was this tiny, shaking voice asking, "Why aren't you coming over anymore?" I felt like someone punched the air out of my lungs. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to lie, but I couldn't tell her the truth either. She's 6. She doesn't understand betrayal and DNA tests and years of silence. But then she said something I'll never forget. I heard Mommy yelling about you. She said you were mad at her because of my daddy. I don't understand. I only have one daddy. My throat closed up. I asked her if she was okay. She said yes, but that Mommy was crying and Daddy was yelling on the phone. That she wasn't allowed to go to school that day because everything was too loud. It crushed me. Zoe had heard everything. Maybe not the full truth, but enough to feel it. The tension, the lies, the anger that had nothing to do with her, yet everything to do with her. I told her I loved her very much. That none of this was her fault. That she was a wonderful, smart, beautiful girl, and I would always care about her, even if I couldn't see her all the time right now. She didn't cry. She just said, okay, really quietly. And then she hung up. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried for an hour. Because no matter how this ends, no matter what Megan or Daniel say or do, the person who got hurt the most in all of this is Zoe. She deserved better. 3 days after Zoe's phone call, Megan showed up at my door. No warning, no text. Just stood there on my porch like she hadn't burned my entire world to the ground. She looked terrible. Hair unbrushed, eyes red and swollen. She had that hollow, defeated look people get when they know they've lost control of the story. I didn't want to let her in, but I did. We sat in silence for a while. I didn't offer her tea. I didn't ask how she was. I just waited. Eventually, she cracked. She admitted it. All of it. Yes, she and Daniel slept together while we were still dating. More than once. She said it started the night he and I had a huge fight. I don't even remember what it was about anymore, and he stayed out late. She swore it wasn't planned. Said it just happened. But it kept happening. She told me she fell in love with him. That she felt guilty, but convinced herself it was fate. That maybe he was meant to be with her instead. She even said, and I swear this is real, that I had always been too serious for him and that he needed someone lighter. I wanted to scream, but I just sat there. She told me when she found out she was pregnant. Daniel panicked. He said he didn't want kids, especially not with her. So she lied. Told him she'd raise the baby with someone else, that he could walk away. Then she met her now husband a few months later and decided to rewrite history. Told everyone, including him, that Zoe was his. And apparently, it worked. Until now. Now everything's blowing up. Her husband saw the DNA test envelope in the trash. He confronted her, and the truth finally exploded in her own home. According to Megan, he stormed out. Said he needed space. She has no idea if he's coming back. That's why she came to me. Not out of guilt. Not out of love. Not even for Zoe. She came because her life was falling apart and she hoped I'd help clean it up. She actually said, Can we just put this behind us? For the family? I laughed. I actually laughed in her face. She looked stunned, like she thought the tears and the confession would magically erase 6 years of betrayal, like she still thought I'd protect her. I told her flat out, no, no, I wouldn't lie for her. No, I wouldn't pretend things were normal. No, I wouldn't help her fix the life she built on top of mine. Then I asked her to leave. And as she stood in the doorway, crying and begging and trying to hug me, all I could think was, she's still only sorry because she got caught. It's been a month since Megan showed up at my door, and I haven't seen or spoken to her since. I meant it when I said I was done. No more calls, no more texts, no more pretending that blood is thicker than betrayal. The fallout, though? It's still unfolding. Her husband didn't come back. He moved in with his brother and has already contacted a lawyer. I don't know the full details, but from what I've heard through a cousin, he wants full custody of Zoe. Apparently he's devastated, but determined to protect her from growing up in a house full of lies. And Daniel? He reached out too. He sent me this long, rambling email. Said he was sorry, that he never meant to hurt me, that he was young and stupid, and didn't know how to be honest. He admitted that he's never stopped feeling guilty, that every time he saw Zoe, he thought about me, that he wanted to tell the truth but didn't know how. He ended the email by saying he hoped someday I'd find peace. I didn't reply, because the truth is, I have found peace. Just not the kind he meant. Not the kind that comes from forgiveness or reconciliation, but the kind that comes from letting go, from choosing myself. For the first time in years, I'm living for me. I've started therapy. I've cut off everyone who tried to gaslight me into silence. I've told my mom, gently but firmly, that if she wants to keep Megan in her life, that's her choice. But I won't be in the same room with her again. And Zoe? That's the part that still hurts. I haven't seen her since that phone call. Her world is being ripped apart by grown-ups who made selfish, horrible decisions. And I hate that she's caught in the crossfire. I think about her all the time. But I know I can't be the one to fix it. Not anymore. That's Megan's mess to clean up. I do hope Zoe grows up and learns the truth. The real truth. And I hope she knows I loved her fiercely, even when I had to walk away. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave the fire, and let the people who lit the match feel the heat. I didn't burn the bridge, but I sure as hell won't be rebuilding it.